Hello everyone. How many of you read your horoscopes regularly or believe in horoscopes? Today we're going to talk about exactly that. Now, statistically speaking, a lot of you will read or believe your horoscopes. Max here is a Capricorn, which means he's very goal oriented, so we'll see how long he's going to sit for this treat during this video. What I want to first do though is ask everybody some questions. And what I want you all to do is to rank these questions on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is a statement that very accurately describes your situation or personality and 1 is the opposite. First, you have a great need for other people to like and admire you. Second, you have a tendency to be critical of yourself. Third, you have a great deal of unused capacity which you have not yet turned to your advantage. Capricorn, Max, Capricorn. 4. While you have some personality weaknesses, you are generally able to compensate for them. 5. Disciplined and self-controlled outside, you tend to be worrisome and insecure inside. 6. At times you have some serious doubts as to whether you have made the right decision or done the right thing. Did you all keep score? If you're truthful, most of you should have scored between 4 and 5. Now, for those of you who clicked into this video thinking that I provide scientific proof of horoscopes, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint. I've heard many explanations in the science, from kind of gravity, the alignment of the planets, quantum physics, and none of them really have any scientific merit. But there is one science that explains horoscopes very well, and that's psychology. The questions that you just scored yourself on, the ones I just asked, were in fact part of a very famous experiment done by a scientist called Forer. He tested his psychology graduate students. He told them that he was going to provide a vignette or sketch of their personalities that would be tailored to them individually. These 6 statements were part of a set of 13 that were given to each of those students, and the students were asked to do exactly what you've just done, rank them on a scale of 1 to 5. And the average score was 4.3, meaning those students felt that the statements were highly personalised and representative of themselves. It was only after they finished scoring that Forer, the scientist, told them actually he'd used the same 13 statements for every single individual. In other words, those 13 statements, of which 6 you just answered, every student thought was personalised and specific to his or herself. This is called the Forer effect, or latterly the Barnum Effect. The Barnum Effect is after the magician that appeared in the film The Greatest Showman, if you've seen it, because he used the same to his advantage when he was doing seances, predictions, psychic stuff and so on. So what actually is the Barnum or the Forer effect? It's basically the ability to write general statements that have very broad applicability, but people believe them to be personalised, and that's the trick. The statements that I read to you, the 6 sentences, are actually really general and could almost describe anybody, but when you read them as part of a horoscope, it appears as if they're very personal and specific to you. So how does the Barnum or Forer effect actually work? Well, there are several principles at play here. The first principle at play is the fact that you're more likely to believe something positive about yourself than something negative. So, if your horoscope were to say you're bossy and don't listen to people and believe you're a great leader, you're much likely to take notice of that than if the horoscope said you have strong opinions and provide firm leadership and guidance to your teams. Both of them have almost the same meaning, but the horoscope will always go with the second one, which is more attractive to people because they want to believe in the positive about themselves. The second effect at play here is what's called the Pollyanna principle, which is effectively we remember good stuff that happens to us a lot more than bad stuff. At the same token, we also remember much more clearly when a horoscope was correct than all the stuff that wasn't correct, and therefore we have this bias looking back that they're very accurate. The third is what we just described in the Barnum effect. Horoscopes, psychics, and other such mediums often use this formulation. They make something that sounds quite specific, but actually is phrased extremely generally, and we'll dig into that a little bit more deeply in a second. And fourth, as human beings, we've got brilliant filtration systems in our mind. We get rid of all the stuff that's redundant. In other words, when you read a horoscope or other such item, what your brain will do is get rid of all the stuff that's not applicable to you and focus only on the stuff that resonates. And that's why horoscopes appear to be so accurate and so personal. So let's do a little experiment now. Let's read my own horoscope. Now, I'm a Leo, and I've basically got a little bit of my horoscope up here, and what I want to do is basically tell you how the Barnum Effect is working. So the first part of my horoscope was your schedule is packed with events, pitch meetings and gatherings, but you've got a million ideas swirling through your mind, ones you're eager to share. This is a classic Barnum statement, because it could apply virtually to anybody who actually works. Note the language. Events, pitch meetings and gatherings covers anybody with any modicum, either a social life or a professional life. And as a million ideas swirling through your mind, this is the same for everybody. We've discussed this many times, the monkey mind. When we discuss meditation, everybody has the problem of a million ideas always swirling around in their mind at once. That's just the human condition. So this is a statement that seems quite specific, but it's written incredibly generally and could apply to almost anybody. The second, you could meet kindred spirits. Consider partnering up on a trial project to test your chemistry. Under these experimental skies, you never know. Now this isn't so much a prediction as it is, give it a go. And so here there's a statement that really you can't hold to account. It's experimental skies. You may succeed, you may fail. So we haven't actually said anything in this sentence. The third, a blossoming bond to go bust if you push things too fast. Don't skip the essential getting to know you process, even if you feel an instant connection. So I guess this is for people who started to 谈恋爱, right? But again, this is what we call in English motherhood and apple pie, which is effectively a statement that is incredibly obvious received wisdom, which is don't rush things at the start of your relationship because you could blow it. Fourth, everything from stalled career plans, sidelined health and fitness goals and relationship blocks could correct course now. Now this is a classic Barnum statement because it's unbelievably general. Health, fitness, career, relationship essentially covers the entirety of your life. It would be very surprising if at least one of those things didn't go right in the course of a month. And of course when it does go right, you think back to your horoscope, oh, it was accurate. But what has actually happened is the 范围是这么广, it can't be wrong. And finally, if you can sneak in a safe getaway, even for a night, do it. Since this full moon is on a Wednesday, it's just as likely that it will deliver a burst of clarity around your higher purpose or an opportunity to make a bold move far outside your comfort zone. But who doesn't feel like that when they're on holiday? Basically you're saying, get away, you'll feel refreshed, you'll have new ideas, you'll have more clarity of your life. But all of us who go on holiday pretty much feel the same. And so I guess the purpose of this video really is to focus on one of the psychological tics of human beings. And that is that we are very likely to want to believe that things are very personal to us. We want to believe in our strong position in the universe. We want to also believe that there's an ability to predict our future because it makes us feel more secure. But the bottom line from science is this: it's more psychology than it is physics. And when we understand our psychology, we're better prepared not to be deceived and also to make the right life choices. In reality, your fate and what's going to happen to you over the next month is in your hands, not in the hands of a horoscope. For those of you who are interested in these kinds of topics, there's a really great British, I guess he used to be a magician, he's not so much now, showman I guess I'd call him. His name is Derren Brown, and he spends a lot of his time basically unraveling these things and showing you how they really work. And so I'll put a couple of links in the video, and you can go if you're interested and check out either his videos or his books. It's very, very much worthwhile taking a read. So that's the psychology applied to astrology, but let's have a look at one of the common themes in horoscopes and try and explain the scientific reason for it occurring, and that's the concept of Mercury in retrograde. Now, Mercury in retrograde is thought of as a harbinger of not positive outcomes. Because what does retrograde mean first? Well, when you look at the planets in the sky, you find that many of them have this kind of motion. So they look like they're going normal. So this is like if you look at the night sky, at the planets, every day you'll see it progress along the sky, and then suddenly they'll come around like this and appear to reverse on themselves. This part, when it comes back on itself, is retrograde motion, and it's thought to be bad luck. For Mercury in particular, I understand it, astrologically speaking, is because Mercury is the messenger god, and so as that comes back on itself, that means that things like communication and travel, etc., all will be affected. So it goes in astrology. The reason this happens, though, is not really anything to do with magic or astrology or anything. It's actually just a simple consequence of planets orbiting the Sun at different speeds. Now, Mercury is the closest planet to the Sun and has the shortest year. It completes one orbit of the Sun in 88 days. It's the quickest planet. So compared to Earth, what's going to happen is it's going to cross the Earth several times. It's going to overtake us, lap us several times, multiple times per year in fact. And it's that process of lapping around Earth that causes the apparent retrograde motion. Let me show you. Now I've drawn this diagram here to hopefully illustrate the point. This small dot here represents Mercury on its inner orbit. The larger circle here represents Earth on an outer orbit. Essentially what happens is that Earth will see Mercury like this. So we draw a line to position 1. Maybe Mercury will appear here in the sky. Time passes, the Earth gets to here. Mercury orbits much faster, so it moves further around proportionally its orbit. And so then we may see Mercury on the sky here. Then to point 3. And as you can see here, this basically, Mercury appears like it's progressing through the sky. Now what happens, which causes the retrograde motion, is as Mercury passes the Earth. At position 4, you'll see that it starts to come back on itself in the sky. You get to position 5, it's here, and then as it continues to orbit round, it'll then start to come back into normal rotation. So what's happening actually in reality is it's because Mercury is quicker than Earth. Every time Mercury passes Earth, it gives the impression, relatively speaking, that it's moving back through the sky, but it's not. It's just simply orbiting Sun more quickly. Now, why though did this retrograde motion give rise to these kind of astrological implications? Well, it's simple. To explain why Mercury has a retrograde motion a number of times per year, the Sun has to be at the centre of the solar system. And of course, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, they did not believe this. They did not know the existence of the solar system. Indeed, before Copernicus' time, they thought the Earth was the centre of the solar system. Now, why was this troubling to ancient astronomers? And why did it give rise to this kind of whole astrological notion that Mercury retrograde is a bad thing? Well, it's because it couldn't really be explained. In order to explain the retrograde motion of Mercury, you have to have you have to have the Sun at the centre of the solar system. So pre-Copernicus, this is a very difficult motion to explain. It is the relative motion of two planets in orbit around the Sun that explains it. And so without that model of the solar system, then yes, it's very troubling indeed that Mercury can go retrograde, appear to go back on itself in the night sky. And that, I suspect, is where all of these negative consequences really came from. That, plus the fact, if we go back to the Barnum Effects, that Mercury goes retrograde multiple times per year because its orbit is much faster than ours. And therefore, actually, the amount of time that Mercury is in retrograde is relatively long compared to the other planets, and therefore that's lots of time for bad things to happen, for human beings to remember bad things happening, and therefore to form that association, even though there may have the 因果关系. So the retrograde motion of Mercury can be very straightforwardly explained using very basic solar system physics, and that's why next time Mercury is in retrograde, what I want you to think about is not that you're going to have bad luck, but think about the wonderful theory of our solar system from Copernicus to now and how the effect actually arises.